Yeah, I walk in the room, make the ceiling shake. Gold hoops, fresh fade, got that big boss cake. Never waited on a hand, I'm in my own lane. Told them put some respect when they say my name.
Thank you so much, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of They Tried It. I am your host, Lindawi, aka The Couch Coach. And by now, I hope you all have seen all of the episodes for this season. We are kicking off part 2 of season 1, and you have seen some tremendous stories from amazing women who have battled that workplace, team, company, organization, and all of them have come out thriving, still in the battle, or continuing to move forward while they assist other people. I hope that this podcast is bringing you insight. I hope that it's bringing you some sort of comfort because you're not on an island by yourself. And just as a reminder, people play too much. So when people play too much, you almost have to remind people that you are not the one to play with. Yes, I think that's the key here. So with that being said, hit the little subscribe button. There should be something popping up for you, maybe in red, maybe in blue. This time we'll see, but hit the subscribe button. I'm across social media as Lindawi_speaks and Future State. Take a look at those things, and we're going to jump right in to today's episode. Today, we're talking to someone who is seasoned, really seasoned here, and she's going to give you a little rundown, okay, about her bio. She's going to give you a little something, and then we're going to jump into the conversation. Andrea, introduce yourself.
Andrea Morehead Allen, 7-time Emmy Award-winning, former broadcaster, news anchor, storyteller, and now advocate, workplace abuse advocate, mother, love the beach, brand owner, brand founder, have a son who is about to go to Marymount College, University, and outside of DC. And I'm loving life right now. I'm one of those women who said, you tried, you thought, and guess who's winning? You were playing checkers. I was playing chess the entire time. So that's me in a nutshell. And I'm just so grateful that this conversation is beginning to really take off like I've never seen before. I mean, I walked away 6 years ago. And when I walked away, when we talk about being alone, I was alone. I was literally on an island because I had never heard of workplace abuse. I just knew that what I was experiencing was wrong. It was ethically wrong. It was offensive to my soul and to my humanity. And until I went to a therapist who finally said, what you're experiencing is classic workplace abuse. And I went, what? Yeah. I had no idea. I had no idea this was a real thing. I just knew that what I was experiencing was not right. So that's me in a nutshell. I spend my life right now like you, talking about this issue, explaining what it feels like, what it means, what you can do to save yourself and to really reclaim your life, which is what I have been doing for the last 6 years. And while obviously there's still parts of me that I'm upset about what happened to me because it never should have happened, I have learned to reframe it so that I can get something good out of it to help other people, but also to move forward in life and to thrive in a way that I've never done before.
Absolutely. First of all, I love that breakdown because it gives context into the direction of where we're going to take this conversation. I want to start with like your origin story, right? Where you started. Let's pick it up from the time that you were in college, right? Where did you go to school? And how impactful was going to that specific college per se as you shifted into any kind of corporate space from there? What was the trail? What did the pathway look like?
I think the pathway for me really begins with my mom and dad. Both of them born in the South of Louisiana, came from, very humble means. Both of them attended Grambling State University. Both of them thespians. They were in the theater department. So my mom and dad have been, for me and my sister, literally the number one folks in our lives who have really set the stage for my sister and I to be successful in life and to not take no for an answer. They helped us to realize that we could be whatever we wanted to be in life. And it's interesting because my sister and I were talking the other day. We were like, they never said that you can't do, they never raised us as you're Black. So, you're going to have these issues in life. It was always kind of like we knew that, but it was never, you're going to have to deal with that because they believed that we were going to be treated fairly.
That's right.
So I never thought that this was going to happen because I did well in my job. I was studious in college and I did all the right things. So that's why when it happened to me, I was like, what is this? But because of my mom and dad going to an HBCU, I went to an HBCU. They wanted me
Okay.
to go to Grambling. I did not. I went to the Howard University in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
So being part of the communications department there, many of my friends that we were, in school back in the day, still friends to this day who are still in the industry. I knew and learned from my professors that obviously you could be whatever you want to in life, but we have an obligation as a Black journalist to not just tell the story, but
Right.
to really be an advocate for our people. So it was clear for me that I had to stand up for myself, that this
Yeah.
was not going to be you do what you want to do. And I just kind of walk away and go, oh, okay. No, because I knew if it was happening to me,
Right.
it was likely happening and will happen to somebody else. So
Absolutely.
the HBCU experience is like none other.
Mhm.
It's when, I look back on that time at Howard and I just see how I grew. My eyes were opened wide. I was writing for the school newspaper. I was anchoring one of the TV shows at WBBM, or WHMM, just all of those things that got me ready and prepared for the business. It
Yeah.
started at Howard U. It started at
Okay.
Howard. But the professors would tell you all the time, like, this is the real world.
Right.
We're in this nice little, area with all of us are people of color, but the
Mhm.
real world is going to try to chew you up and spit you out. But
Right.
you have to be prepared. And so, yeah, it really gave us the foundation for resiliency and having perseverance and not backing down and speaking truth to power. That's what an
That
HBCU does.
That right there is the key here for a
Mhm.
lot of folks. And I've heard this throughout a lot of the interviews that I have had, where early on, some people were made privy to this information, whether it was through their household, whether
Mhm.
it was through school, whether
Yeah.
it was through like an early friendship, that the grounding force of understanding how the world is actually operating and how you fit into it
Mhm.
was going to be super helpful for them as they shift into corporate spaces.
Programming.
You graduate from Howard, you
Mhm.
shift into that first job, right?
Mhm.
What is that first job? And what is the
Yeah.
first thing you learned about yourself and the systems that are attached to it?
The first job that I had was with a company called Greater Media Cable. It was out of
Mhm.
New Jersey. And when I was at Howard, I applied for this position. It was a year-long internship. And once you did the internship for a year, they would place you with one of their companies or one of their organizations or TV stations or radio within the company. And so I did that for a year. I was traveling between DC, working in radio. I was in New Jersey. I was in Long Island. I was in Philadelphia. And then after that, they placed me at their TV station in Worcester, Massachusetts, right
Yeah.
outside of Boston. And so at the time, it wasn't a traditional media, it was a cable station, but we provided news for this area outside of Boston. And that
Okay.
was my first foray into the business. And for me, I was just wide eyed and bushy tailed. I just
Yeah.
had that feeling of I can do anything I want. And just,
Absolutely.
yeah, I was like, I was that girl. I was like,
Mhm.
doing it.
Mhm.
And one of the biggest lessons for me was just to not have fear. And I think that is with youth. As you're younger, you don't have a lot to lose. And so you just feel as if I can do whatever I want to as long as I, put my best foot forward. There was a fearlessness that I had back then. As you get older, you begin to understand not that you're fearful, but you're a little bit more clear about the world. You
Right.
start to grow up. You begin to
Right.
understand the societal issues, the political issues, all the machinations that as you're young, you don't necessarily see.
Mhm.
So I did that for, oh gosh, 3 years. And then I went and I was in Fox 59 in Indianapolis as a producer.
Okay.
And then I went to Grand Rapids, Michigan. I was there for 3 years.
Mhm.
And then I went back to Indianapolis and worked there full time beginning in 1999. So when
Okay.
I went back to my home state, my home city, and worked in my home, which was a dream come true for my mom and dad to see me
Yeah,
in
I
their
bet.
own home,
I bet.
um, that was a 21-year journey. And I
Wow.
walked away, threw the mic down, and was like, I'm done. I'm
Okay.
done. Because I knew that what was happening to me was real. It was discriminatory. It was
Yeah.
racially motivated. And
Mhm.
I don't need them to tell me that it was not or was. I don't even need them to admit to it because it was real. And
Mhm.
as Black people, we know what racism looks like. I think
We
we've
do.
allowed people to define racism They believe that it's just calling somebody the N word, and it's not.
Mhm.
And I decided that for my sanity, walk away.
You had to hang it up.
I had to hang it up. No job is worth losing my life nor my soul.
Oh, now that right there is a gem. No job.
It wasn't worth it. And let me tell you, it took me a while to get there. It was not easy.
I bet. I think a lot of people, what I've heard again throughout a lot of these conversations, it's you can't make me turn into something that I'm not. You can't stop what is already meant for me, regardless, even though this is a very hard thing that's happening, right? I think listening to the time that you spent at this station, right? 21-year journey, you showed up, you did the work, but let's dig into some of the things that you started to recognize that allowed you to be reassured in the thought process of this is not only bad behavior and I'm dealing with bad actors, but this is also a system of racism that I'm experiencing within this station for something that I have worked really hard for. What was like that first sign that you recognized? And what did you do in that moment when it came to you?
You know, the very first time that it happened, this is when Oprah was, had her TV show. And she was coming on every day at 4 o'clock, right before our 5 o'clock newscast. And so when I got there in 1999, I was hired as the 5:30 p.m. anchor and the 10 o'clock anchor. And then there was a 5:30, 6, 10, and 11. I was anchoring the 5:30 and the 10. So there was another reporter anchor there who was kind of like the legacy anchor, had been there for years. I kind of grew up watching her. And when I got there in 1999, I was, as I mentioned, 5:30 and 10. And she decided to retire, to work part-time, kind of semi-retired. And at the time, there was this conversation, well, what do we do? How do we move Andrea around? Now, mind you, I was the first, maybe the second African-American female anchor at the TV station. There was a woman who had been there before. She ended up leaving for some of the same reasons that I ended up leaving 20 years later. But remember, I was 29 years old at the time. I was I was like, dipping and doing, just all excited. But the very first time was when Oprah went from one network to NBC, to our station. And this woman was leaving. She was going to work part-time. And so the question was, well, what do we do with Andrea? How do we move her up? Now, mind you, we're in Indiana, Republican state. Very few people who looked like me had ever helmed a major broadcast Monday through Friday.
Right.
And the very first time that I realized, okay, race might have played a role in this was, what are they going to do with me?
Right.
And at that time, they decided to let me be the 5 o'clock anchor.
Okay.
But the conversation was, we're going to have you do the 5 o'clock coming right out of Oprah. And I just sat there going, what does that mean? So when this legacy anchor left, they brought in someone else who did not look like me. It's a white woman, blonde hair white woman.
Yeah.
And instead of making me the 5, 6, and 11 o'clock anchor to take the place of the legacy anchor that left, they brought in this other woman. And then that's when it began this conversation of there's no A team and B team. We're all the same. So instead of me getting the 5, 6, and 11, I got the 5 o'clock.
Okay.
And it was one of those moments where I just thought, okay, so this other woman leaves, I'm getting half of the job. And my mom and dad, we had a lot of conversations about it. And it just hit me. Okay, so they want me at 5 because it's after Oprah and people are used to watching a Black woman. So Andrea's going to be there. But I don't get the number one job, which is the 6 p.m.
Right.
And the 6 p.m. is the kind of the show of record, if you will. And that's the one that makes the most money. That's the one where advertisers are spending more money. That's the one where people are sitting at home and they're really watching the news. And they did not want a Black woman, let's just be clear, helming the 6 p.m. newscast.
Right.
So them setting up this environment that we're all now equal anchors created a chasm within the organization for 15 years, because that happened in 2005, for 15 years, where it was this battle between me and this other person. Not that I was battling them, but they wanted to make sure that her feelings were protected. Let's just keep it real.
Right.
They wanted to make sure that her feelings were protected, that she wasn't number 2, but that we were so-called equal anchors. But that just created an environment that continued to be fueled over and over and over again in so many different ways that led me to finally just say, you know what, I'm done. You want this place, you can have it.
Was there in that moment when they tell you, okay, just kidding, we're going to move you to the 5 p.m., did they ever come to you directly and have a conversation? And were you able to voice this thought process, or even the toe the line version of this thought process, so that you can maintain your job but also say what's true? Did you have that opportunity?
There was, I guess the opportunity is one that we have to create for ourselves. And
Yeah.
at that time I didn't do that. And
Mhm.
that's one of the things that I've had to come to terms with, is that over, 21 years, these things happen. So many situations like this where they're not doing a promo for you, or they're showing a promo, but they put you at the very end, or you're
Yeah.
the anchor for the 5 o'clock show, but you're nowhere to be found or nowhere to be seen. Those kinds of things continue to happen. But it's one of those moments where you're thinking, well, if I say something, because I think we intuitively know that if we say something, if we speak
Yeah.
up,
Your livelihood is on the line.
our livelihood is on the line. I'm like, they're going to mess up my money.
Yeah.
and I don't want that to happen. And so you're always walking this tightrope. How much
Yeah.
can I say? What can I
Mhm.
say? Who do I say it to? What is this going to do? Are they going to retaliate against me? So that was
Absolutely.
always in the back of my mind.
Mhm.
But what happens is it begins to set up this feeling. All of these moments are happening, and the aggregate of them over all of these years literally pushed me to the edge, where I'm like, I'm tired of holding it in. I'm tired of not being able to talk about it. I'm tired of not being able to be real about what they're doing, and to just kind of walk around like all is well with my soul when it wasn't.
Mhm.
My
Yeah.
mom and dad knew, my parents knew, my family knew. People in the community who are smart people are like, well, what's going on? Why didn't you
Right.
get the main job? Why weren't
Right.
you promoted to the main position? And I couldn't say anything because I needed to protect my job. And I
Yeah.
didn't know if it was, you want to think that people are doing or making decisions for the right reasons. And
Absolutely.
you never want to say, oh, it's because I'm Black. But
Mhm.
instinctively, I knew that that played a role, because all of a sudden you want to change the rules. You want to move the goalpost. And every time the rules change, when it's my time to ascend.
Ooh.
And literally, I got shooketh in my soul right now when I just said that, because that
Listen,
is
I I
that.
just said to myself, I said, wait a minute. The goal, when you're trying to ascend, the goal post will change, the door will move in and of itself, or
Mhm,
someone's guarding the door
mhm.
as well. I think that the cross between, and I always want to make this clear in
Yeah,
every episode, that when people's livelihood is on the line, it is often difficult for some people to speak up, right?
absolutely.
And the other
And
thing
that's
is that,
and that's real. I mean, it's
yeah,
set up that way. That's the system. It's set up that way so that we remain
absolutely.
silent. Mhm.
Absolutely. And I think that there's something attached to the livelihood and the morality compass, right?
Mhm,
It's
mhm.
very difficult because you, the person that's experiencing the microaggressions or even the larger aggressions in and of itself,
Right.
you are hoping that the opposite side, AKA the bad actor or those
Mhm,
teammates or the whole org for that matter, that
mhm.
is mistreating or mishandling you, that their moral compass will kick in. But
Yeah.
the problem there is that that's not something we can always count on, right?
You can't count
And
on it at all.
you
And
can't.
that was the
Right.
problem. You can't count on it. You're thinking that. And I
Yeah.
think that that's exactly what many of us do. We're like, okay, somebody is going to get right here.
Somebody's gonna do the right
Somebody's
thing.
going to do the right thing.
Uh-huh.
Someone understands what's happening. I talk to them. This is the president and general manager, or the news director, or, one of the executive producers. Someone's going to do the right thing.
Right.
And you hold out hope because you really do. I believe, as my sister and I were talking, our parents taught us that, everyone is deserving of love. Everyone is deserving to thrive in life.
Yeah.
And yet we still want to believe the best in people. And I don't
Mhm.
want to assume that you're treating me this way because I am Black. But
Right.
again, I have to ask myself, well, why now? And why me? Why now? Why me? Why are the rules changing when it's my turn to
Right.
ascend to the throne, if you will?
Absolutely.
And it just began, just kind of the slippery slope, if you will.
Mm.
The
Mm.
internal macroaggressions and microaggressions. Every
Yeah.
time a new administration came in, when they could make a change, their moral compass and even their ethical compass,
Yeah.
they didn't want to take a chance for whatever reason. But I
Mhm.
do believe, and this is a real conversation that we really need to have, and I did a post about this on one of Page's social media apps, is that whenever it's time for a Black woman to ascend, to be at the helm, again, the rules change, but there is this notion that they do it because they really want to protect the white woman. And I'm
Right.
just being clear.
Right.
They don't want to make that person feel as if they are playing second fiddle. And that's
Yeah.
what was going on in my TV station. They wanted to make sure that she felt that she was still the number one girl, or, and I was number 2 or 3 or
Number
whatever
two.
it was.
Or the afterthought. Was there a moment where you said, you know what, let me see if I can have a little chat with this other anchor? Did you all ever come together and chat? Or was the environment, because the environment was set up a specific way, to your point, a chasm of sorts, where there was no ecosystem where you all could actually say, oh, we're not in competition. Let's see if we
No.
can actually tag team together. Did you all ever talk about these things or any of the workplace issues?
No, because I think, you have to understand who you're working with, and
Yeah.
everyone's not able to have that conversation. There are
Mhm.
some, and I call them freedom riders. There are people who don't look like us, who clearly understand how racism plays a role in society.
Yeah.
These are some of those people are not, because they are narcissistic. Let's keep it
Mhm.
real. It's all about them.
Yeah.
And their job defines who they are as a person. My job was a ministry. I
Mhm.
didn't get into journalism to be a celebrity. I didn't get into journalism to be, walking around town and everybody know my name. That's never been who I was, which is why I was able to walk away. But for many people, this job, being in the limelight, defines who they are. It makes them feel good as a person.
Yeah.
And for me, it was a ministry. So no, these were the kind of people you could not have those real conversations with. We could
Yeah.
not have a real conversation and say, this is how I'm feeling. And what do you think about this? There was never anything like that. This was not the kind of person I would even want to be friends with.
Okay. Now, see, that clears things up, because a lot of times when you're dealing with, whether you're dealing with bad actors who are the leaders of said
Yeah.
team or organization, or you're dealing with a teammate who is
Mhm.
also what they would call a bad actor, it does make it very difficult to kind of jumpstart that conversation. A friend of mine calls it a lemon squeeze, right? When
Mhm.
you host a lemon squeeze chat with the person that you may be misunderstanding, or they're misunderstanding you, and then you
Yeah.
come together, right? But that's not real in
Yeah,
every
it's not real.
situation, and you have to be able to read the room to what you
Right.
said for
Well,
the personalities.
I read the room the very first time I met her.
Okay.
It started with a handshake. Girl, I'm telling you, I'll never forget the moment. It started with a handshake. When this
Mm,
person was brought in, they had a big welcome party, and
yeah.
all the suits were in there. And I had just come in around, it's about 1:30, to do some promos. And so I was not invited to the party. No. So I come in and I put my makeup on. I walk through the studio B to head to studio A to do promos.
Yeah.
And she was sitting there by herself. The party had ended. And I walked through and said, hi, I'm Andrea Morehead. Nice to meet you. Shook her hand. And I'm telling you, because I'm a person of faith, I have a spirit of discernment, was all in my body.
Spirit of discernment. Let that be a
And I'm going
t-shirt.
to tell you what, this is the very first time I'm ever sharing this story with you.
Okay.
I'll never forget it. Reached my hand out and said, hi, I'm Andrea Morehead. Nice to meet you. Welcome to the team. Shook hands, and literally there was something that went through my body, and I was like, she is not to be trusted. And
Oh. Mhm.
I
Mhm.
didn't stutter. She's
Mhm.
not to be trusted. And
Mhm.
that spirit played itself out over the next 15, 16, 17 years.
I think there's a sadness there as well, in terms of the opportunity that could have been created
That could have been.
had the two people, livelihoods, characters been able to join together. And to your
Yeah.
point, this level of discernment, we talk about this throughout the podcast, throughout episodes, where you have to use some sort of filtration system when it comes to
Mhm.
people.
Mhm.
You can make it up however you want to, but you have to be paying attention from an internal place.
Yeah.
And the only way that you can do that is if you have a level of self-awareness, which
Mhm.
comes from self-interrogation.
Right.
And so I think you having that instinct about you, it never left you.
Never left.
The behavior across the 15 years also proved your point. When you started if we fast forward to,
Yeah.
I want to say year 13, so basically 2 or 3 years before you are about to jump ship, what was going on at that time with leadership? And had anyone ever revisited putting you into that 6 o'clock slot? Or was there going to be another plan to elevate or uplift you at all?
So there was the last general manager and president who was there. I remember when he first came, this was back in maybe like 2016, 2015, 2016. He asked me, he took me to lunch and said, why aren't you doing the 6 p.m. newscast?
Okay.
And I thought, okay, here we go. We're going to finally go there. This is the fourth general manager that I had,
Okay.
and the last. And I just said, well, you need to ask the prior administration.
Oh, okay.
Because I know the answer, but you don't really want my answer. Because my answer, you're not going to understand it. You're going to say, oh, you're using the race card. You're going to tell me all the reasons why it's not. So rather than you ask me, you need to ask the prior administration. You need to go find those general managers. They're still alive, except for one. One passed away. But go ask them why they did not promote me. And they'll tell you why. And I want to know what their answer is, because I don't know. I've never known. I've never asked them.
Right.
But that began the trajectory of moving me in that position, which I didn't know at that time. So that was like 2017. So all the craziness was still going on. And finally in 2020, I was promoted. And I was promoted, but I didn't get the money.
Okay, so they just so they said, hey girl, we're gonna put.
They're like, Andrea, congratulations, you're gonna now be the 6 p.m. anchor. So now you're doing the 5, 6, and 11 that I should have gotten back in 2005.
Right.
In 2020.
Wow.
Okay. But here's where it goes down, where it goes south. So I don't get any money. My agent called and said, well, clearly we need to redo Andrea's contract.
Right.
They were like, no. They were like, no, we're not. They're like, no. So this is just kind of like one part of many of the craziness that was going on that finally made me say I'm done. But no, the answer was no. And I did not find out until we went to depositions after I filed the federal lawsuit. The reason why. And the reason why was, are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
The gaslighting comes in. I'm like, y'all are crazy and stupid. And you think we're stupid, but we're not. But they said, well, Andrea came to us in 1999 from Market 37, which was Grand Rapids.
Okay.
Indianapolis is Market 25.
Okay.
And the co-anchor, the reason why she's not going to get paid any more money, or even comparatively speaking to her male co-anchor, or even the weather girl, who's only on 7 minutes a day, was making almost double what I was making. The reason why is because she came from Market 37, and this other person, male anchor, came from the network.
So we just, so let's talk numbers.
But wait a minute, before we get to numbers, but wait, and here's the final thing that I say, really, I was like, y'all are just crazy. Andrea's promotion was duties as assigned. I was like, so now I'm obligated to do this stuff. You can't make it. You literally can't make it up. Like I tell people all the time, I'm like, Shonda Rhimes has nothing on reality. I mean, she does great work. Issa Rae, everybody, they do great work, but you cannot make this up.
You can't make
it up. They literally said in the deposition, it was duties as assigned. Now, they didn't say that to my face, but during the deposition, that was their excuse when asked, well, why didn't Andrea get the financial promotion? Why didn't Andrea get there was no promotion internally. Nobody even knew internally that I had been named the 6 p.m. anchor. No one even knew in the community that I had been named the 6 p.m. anchor. There was no promotion. There was nothing, no press release, nothing. I was supposed to just do whatever they told me to do and be happy that I had a job. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, going, this is 2020. Why are we doing this?
Right.
This is ridiculous.
Right.
21 years and I'm just supposed to do whatever you tell me to do and I don't get the financial reward for it. We're done. I'm out.
I want to dive into, before we get to the steps that you took for the lawsuit, I wanted to touch on, throughout this time, you saw these things happening over the years. You did attempt to have the conversation with the most recent general manager before.
Many times over.
You also kept showing up, because this is very key. A lot of times when you look like us, we don't have the luxury. There is no luxury to say, oh, you know what? Not today. I'm going to go skateboard down the street for myself, and I'm just going to be skateboarding all day. And someone else is just going to take on my responsibility, and no one's going to say anything. Like, we don't have that luxury. You actually do have to keep doing the best you can to show up in the role, because ultimately you would have had the foresight to know that this is going to show up on you later if you do launch a lawsuit, or if you file a complaint, or whatever other thing that people would come up with in terms of a false narrative to support whatever story they want to try to combat your true story with. What did you do for yourself in those moments? Meaning, did you take longer time for yourself over the weekends? Did you lean more into family and friends? Because when you're dealing with this type of challenge, adversity, and you're trying to understand what's going on and why you're not being promoted, why you're not receiving the proper funds, and you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing, it plays a number on a person. People have to go to therapy. They have to take leave of absences. They have to do all of these things to try to support themselves. But what were you doing for yourself to kind of maintain that balance until you could figure out what your exit strategy was going to be?
Let me back up just slightly, because when I walked away, it was in 2020. And I will tell you that what happened to me dealing with the micro and macro aggressions for all of those years made me sick. I ended up with breast cancer, diagnosed with triple negative, which is the deadliest form for Black women. That was in April 18th of 2020. I'm sorry, 2018. And I spent 2.5 years literally trying to survive while dealing with the craziness at the station. So the two of those combined, it gave me an opportunity to, when I was going through chemo and radiation and of course the surgery, and then another almost 2 years of immunotherapy treatments to make sure that it didn't come back, I had a lot of time to really think and to focus on how do I want to live my life and to really live in truth. And that's the thing that people don't talk about. You know, a health scare will make you analyze your life.
That's true.
And I literally said, Lord, please save me. Because at the time my son was 9 years old. And I said, I got to be around for my son. I have to be around for my husband, my family. And I kept asking myself, how do I go back into this environment and live differently and to live authentically? That's what it is. For all of those years, you're really living a double life. And I was exhausted. And I told my husband, as all of this was going on, I said, I need to get some help because I don't know why I keep getting jammed up by this administration for no reason. They're just doing it because they can. And it's inhumane, it's wrong. And I'm beginning to have thoughts that I've never ever had before because the pain is so severe. And that's when I told my husband one night, I literally fell on my knees and I said, I've got to go get some help because I don't know what else to do. I'm asking for accountability and they're literally looking at me and saying, nothing to see here. And they're not addressing the issue. And I have ascended. I've been here for 21 years, and the disrespect and the disregard was literally unaliving my soul. That's the only way I can explain it. And after I went to therapy, that's when I really began working. This is in 2019. I really began working on just identifying what was happening, being clear and truthful about what was happening, and emotionally planning my exit strategy. I didn't really know what it was going to be, but I knew that I couldn't stay there because they refused to do the right thing. Their moral compass never kicked in. And they had an agenda. Their agenda was to literally push me out because my absence would allow this other person to thrive in a way that my presence was not allowing her to emotionally, because my presence was a hindrance to her success. So she thought. And so as a result, I went to therapy and just really began to work on myself and just say, you know, Lord, help me have the strength to walk away. I didn't know what that was going to look like. I didn't know when. But, you know, the aggregate of all of those moments kind of came to a head when I'm working from home. I'm thinking, okay, it's COVID. Everyone's broadcasting from home. I'm like, it's going to be better. And it continued to happen. It just continued. It actually got worse. And I remember sending a story in for a story I did one evening. And I sent it to the news director, assistant news director, two executive producers, and the assignment editor. And he said something defamatory, disparaging about me. And he hit reply all, and I received the email.
Oh, wow.
And that's when I told my husband, I'm done.
Okay. Okay.
this is time to go. It's time to
Yeah.
go. I didn't know when that was going to happen. So about maybe 3 or 4 months later is when I finally walked out, June 5th, 2020.
The thing is, with all of these things, you know, there's a lot of occurrences and instances that can happen throughout a person's career.
Yeah.
Your career, most certainly, across those 21 years you were in this place, these things continued. You were trying to figure out the plan. You were doing the best you can to take good care of yourself because you also had an extenuated health circumstance that was actually
Right.
happening to you in real time.
Mm.
And then you get to the few months before it's time to leave. Is that when you have the thought to yourself, you know what? I'm going to file a lawsuit. And before you answer that question, I wanted to know, did this station have a way for you to file a complaint?
You know, that's a good question. I have no idea. I mean, we had HR, but I knew that HR was not my friend.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So I mean, there have been situations even when I was going through my health scare where they were nickeling and diming me over time.
Oh my God.
And yeah, I mean, I've got the emails and everything, and it was outrageous. And I believe that they were literally trying to break me
Yeah.
because it would be easier. Here's what I'm gonna say. I believe they thought I was going to die from breast cancer, and that would have been an easier scenario for them.
Fair.
And that's just real. They thought that I was going to die. And guess what? The two people who sent me some like cards or whatever were the two kind of, I don't want to call them nemesis, but the two people who were the problems in the newsroom. That should tell you something. So you know, it's time to go. If I stay any longer, I'm going to hurt somebody. Like there were moments where I actually felt that kind of anger.
Yeah.
And that's when I told my husband, I was like, this is not right. I should not be living like this. I just want to do my job. But they were intentionally making it difficult for me to do it. And they were doing it intentionally. So
you say to yourself, you know what? I'm going to find me an attorney
mhm.
and I'm going to file this lawsuit. When you decided to go in that direction,
Mhm.
what was the feeling that you had for yourself? Because thinking about it holistically, right? I always remind people that no one is waking up in the morning time saying, woo, let me go ahead and file a lawsuit because I want more of my day and time consumed by this thing
the
that
shenanigans,
I have to do because these people should have just done right. So for you, the feeling that came over you when you said, you know what, I'm going to file this lawsuit. I'm not going to back down and I'm going to see this through. What was that feeling? And what was the support that you received from your family, your husband, to really make that decision?
So let's start with the feeling. The feeling came on June 5th of 2020. It was a week after George Floyd had died or had been murdered.
Yeah.
And I set out to do a story talking to women of diverse backgrounds about how they felt.
Yeah.
And in the story, now mind you, it's during COVID, but in the story, I did a video where, you know, you hear him screaming out for his mother.
Right.
And as I'm playing this story on air, it's airing during the 6 o'clock newscast. I had two parts, 6 and one that was going to air at 11. As it was airing, I was literally crying, internally crying, but also visibly crying at the very end of it. And you can see a couple of tears. But what hit me in that moment that I was not prepared for was that I was like George Floyd. I was screaming out for help, asking for accountability. And they had their knee on my neck the entire time that I was there.
Yeah.
And nobody was helping me. Nobody helped. And it was not planned. I didn't plan to walk away that day. It just felt right. There was something in my spirit that said, today's the day.
Yeah.
And I got off the air at 6:30, walked downstairs. It was like 6:37. I talked to the producer and said, hey, the part 2 can air by itself tonight. I don't need to be on the air to intro it and tag it from home. Let it just air by itself. She was like, okay, that's a great idea. Send me what you want to do for Monday over the weekend, and we'll talk about it Monday morning in our assignment, in our news meeting. I said, okay. And it just hit me. I'm like, you know what? I've been asking for help and accountability. They've had their knee on my neck for 21 years, and I'm done.
Okay.
And I walked downstairs and told my husband, said, I'm done. He was like, what are you talking about? I was like, call the attorney. I'm done. He goes, what do you mean? I'm done. I'm never going back there again. And that was the last day. I never walked back in that station. Haven't seen those doors. I left whatever was in there was there. I just didn't care anymore.
Yeah.
And so that began the journey. And that began, okay, filing the EEOC. I had no qualms about it whatsoever. I knew it was the right thing to do because for me as a journalist, it really wasn't just about me. I knew that if this happened to me, obviously it had happened to other people. I didn't know
Yeah.
specifically, but I knew that there were other people within the organization who had people who looked like us. And of course, it's not my story to share, but we had
Right.
been talking about these issues for years at the water cooler,
Mm.
on breaks, at home, on the
Yeah.
weekends, calling me. These are the normal conversations that we had all the time.
Yeah.
And I just was of the mind like, well, we can do something about it. All of us together. Let's say something. Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
And people were very reticent. And I'm just that person that I'm like, no, it's not right. It's not
Mm.
right. And if we don't say something, this is going to continue to happen.
Yeah.
We are meant as journalists now. I'm not speaking as just somebody, just, my own personal experience, but I'm saying as a profession, we're
Yeah.
supposed to hold institutions accountable. That's our role. That's our job. We're supposed to shine a light on injustice. That's our role. That's my job.
Wow.
And I could not fight for myself and I can't fight for other people. And I can't just accept the behavior and not speak out about it so that I can help and save somebody else.
That's
And
right.
that was the whole point. So the whole lawsuit wasn't even about me. It was about exposing the freaking truth, holding them accountable, watching them walk and be paraded in court, put their hand on a Bible, raise their hand up and say, I promise to tell the truth, to defend themselves against the truth. It was
Right.
always about the truth. So I
Mhm.
had to play the game in the sense because it is a game.
It
Companies,
is.
it's a game for them. They know that many times people are not going to win their cases. You might
Mm.
get so far or they'll finally settle with you and you sign an NDA, you walk away, no harm, no foul, you get a little money and you go, live your happy life. And that was not enough for me because
Right.
again, if this can happen to me, it will happen to somebody else. And I
Absolutely.
could not sleep at night.
Mm.
I'm like, I want the truth to come out so that everybody understands that one, this is wrong. This is why I walked away because I walked away, did not have a goodbye. Everyone's like, what happened? So it took a year before people even realized why I was not even on the air. And that was
Mm.
when the federal lawsuit came out, when I finally got the right to sue. And, companies know that the laws are written in a way that really protect them. They
It's
don't
true.
protect us.
Yeah.
And when I realized that it was going to be an uphill battle and I had to decide how far are we going to go, I knew that we were not going to be able to go to trial. And again, for me, it was always about the truth. I wanted the truth, the evidence to come out.
Yeah.
And I had to ask myself, well, what's the best way for this to happen?
Mhm.
And it's don't sign the NDA and don't take the money. And that's
Okay.
what I did. So at the 11th hour, when they offered a settlement to let the case go away, I said, I don't want your money.
Mm.
I don't want your money. It's never been about money. It's always been about the truth. It's
Yeah.
always been about the truth. And to this day, I cannot tell you how many emails that I've received from people who used to work there
Yeah.
who have said, I'm sorry, or it was happening to me, but I was scared,
Mhm.
or thank you for speaking up. People who worked with these people in other stations who wrote to me saying, I signed an NDA. They did the same thing to me. This general manager, this president, this promotions director, they did the same thing to me at another local station. I
Yeah.
signed an NDA. So it takes someone having, and I'm not saying I'm courageous, but I was just doing what I'm supposed to do as a human being.
Right.
And it's to
Right.
make sure that this doesn't happen to somebody else. So for me,
Absolutely.
it really was just about getting the truth out. And when I realized that they just want this to go away, I was like, not on my watch. Not on
No.
my watch. Guess what? I will never stop talking about this. And guess
Yeah.
what? There's nothing you can do about it because the truth is always a defense. And they know I got the deeds. They know I
Mhm.
got the goods. I got the receipts. And I know where all the bones are buried. So there you go.
What I have enjoyed about the conversation is making sure, number one, you understand exactly what's going on at said company, industry, organization, team. Because a lot of times I think when people are experiencing adversity or challenges, sometimes they don't know the exact word. Is it racism? Is it sexism? Is it some sort of policy that's against disability?
Mhm.
Is it because this is a trans person and you don't want to change their name? So now they're going to have to come after you, right? Like,
Mhm.
what is the thing that is happening to you?
Mhm.
Is it retaliation? Is it bullying? So that's one of the biggest things I've pulled out of this conversation. And I really hope folks can really hear that within themselves to really
Yeah.
be able to identify what is true about your story.
Yeah.
I think the second thing that has come out of this is that you wanted more than anything for someone to just be honest about what was happening. That's that in and of itself, it's very difficult to fight a battle when it's just you and you are up against a lot of different people, right?
Right.
And so
Right.
back to what I've said before about a lot of times people feel like they're on an island by
Yeah.
themselves, and so they're either scared, etc. But I reckon and attach that to your courage too, right? I think you are courageous, but you have to determine what level of courage you have. And this is something that I made up for myself, but I think there's like I'm like, think of it as like a 1 to 10 scale, right? And so for me, I'm probably right at an 8.5, 9, right? I'm going to go as far as I think I can take it because you took it too far with me,
Right.
my actions, right? Someone else may be at a 3. So maybe they're only to file something anonymously. Maybe they're willing to have a friend file on their behalf, right? But I think for you, you did everything you were supposed to do. You did try to hang in there. You were experiencing health problems on top of that. And then everything piled up into itself. And then you said, you know what? I'm going to go this route because this is the only thing I have left that I can do at this point, right? I think the third thing that has popped out for this conversation is reminding people that there are options.
There are always options.
There are options, and you are never stuck in any one place. Whether you decide to file a complaint, you go through the EEOC, you go with your attorney, you decide to do a severance settlement, you actually sue, whatever layer pathway you want to take, you have options.
Yeah.
And there's so many people out there attached to you or not attached to you who can walk you through the steps.
Yeah.
Before we go, I want you to share 2 things that you want people to remember when they're in workspaces and when they're standing up for themselves. What are 2 antidotes that you live by?
When they're in the workplace is to trust your gut.
Mhm.
What you're feeling is real. You know, your body keeps the score. Your body is telling you when your hair is falling out, you're not sleeping at night,
Yeah.
you develop breast cancer or any other ailment, you're gaining weight. I look now at pictures months prior to being diagnosed with breast cancer, and I see my weight was fluctuating, and it was all connected to what I was feeling and dealing with the abuse in the workplace. But your body keeps the score. So be cognizant and don't
Yeah.
deny that what you feel is not real. It is real. Your body is telling you something is wrong. Number 2, you know, one of the things, and I want to be really, really clear because I think sometimes people say, well, you didn't take the money, you know, you didn't take the settlement, and what's wrong with that? And I want to be clear that, and I tell people, justice is defined by the person who seeks it. What you decide is justice may not be what justice is for me. And everyone's situation is different. Everyone's walk, everyone's workplace abuse experience is different. There are layers to it. And so I never want to tell people, don't take the money. If that's what you want, if that's going to make you feel better, then you absolutely do that. If I were not a journalist, I probably would have. But as a journalist, I felt it was my obligation to tell the story. I mean, I've been telling stories for 35 years. And as a storyteller, you know, I've been telling stories about people's, you know, aspirational events or experiences and helping people and educating and informing people. And I'd say, you know, people ask me all the time, what's the biggest story that you've ever done? And it's my story. It's my story. I've interviewed everybody that you can imagine, but the most important story is my story. Everyone's
That's
story
right.
is important. So I tell people, do what is comfortable for you because your experience may not be my experience. Now, there are certainly some overlapping. Gaslighting, retaliation, the macroaggressions, all of that stuff it all falls underneath the umbrella of workplace abuse, bullying, all of that. But at the end of the day, what works for you may not work for me. And for me, it was always about truth. And that's because I'm a journalist and I wanted the truth to come out. I wanted people to know why I did what I did, why I walked away, why I didn't say goodbye to the community, why I left in a hurry. I wanted people to know because I had been there for 21 years. It was my home. And I had served that community. It served me. And I did not want people to think that I just walked away for no reason. I wanted them to know the truth. So again, justice is defined by the person who seeks it. And I always tell people to, for me, you know, I was reading John Lewis's book, Walking with the Wind. And he says there's a portion that just really resonates with me and spoke to me when I was reading it on the beach. And he says, there comes a point in time in everyone's life where you have to answer to the call, the spirit of history. And when I read that, I thought, that's exactly what I'm a part of.
Yeah.
I'm a part of a historical moment for change. And if I just sit back and take money and walk away and live my life, but I don't tell the story that can help move us along, to help progress, to help change laws, to help make it better for the next person, then what was the point? I don't want to be selfish in that. So justice is defined by the person who seeks it, and be open to the spirit of history, whatever that looks like for you.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, if nobody else believes your story, I do.
You better say that again. If no one else believes the story,
I believe your story. I see you and I hear you. And thriving in life is our birthright. We were born to thrive. There's enough to go around for everyone to thrive.
That's right.
And that's the mantra that I live by every day, especially now as an advocate, is that I believe your story. When I talk to women and they're like, no one believes me, or when I went to HR, they didn't believe me, or I was telling somebody, I believe you because I've been through it. And so I want people to know, and that's why my story is important. That's why I said, I don't want the money. I want people to know that this is real. This happened to me. Yeah. I know what you're feeling. I know the feeling of despair. I know what it feels like to be on your knees crying, asking, why is this happening to me? I know what it feels like. And I am going to legitimize your feelings because so many times we are alone. Nobody is there for us. And I just want people to know that I feel you, I see you, and I hear you. And your story is real. Your story matters. And if nobody believes it, I do.
That's right. I appreciate you so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
You're so welcome.
Thank you. There have been so many beautiful gems, and just for sharing your story. Across social, how can people find you?
Oh gosh, let's see. I'm in the process of changing a whole bunch of things, but on Instagram, it's Andrea WTHR now. I know people are like, why do you still have their last name? Instagram won't let me change it because they set it up. And I'm like, I'm not going to give away my community that I've built for all of these years. So whatever. So I'm not going to change it. So what I say WTHR stands for wisdom, truth, honesty, and respect, which is what I got none of when I was working for them. How about that? Wisdom, truth, honesty, and respect. How about that? That's what it stands for.
That's what it stands for.
Andrea WTHR. On TikTok, I'm Andrea the TV Lady. And I have the YouTube show and channel called My Silence Is Not for Sale with Andrea Morehead on YouTube.
Delicious. I thank you. Thank you so, so much.
You're so welcome.
Everyone that's watching, once again, we've had a lovely episode. Continue to tap in, tune in, support, because I need the support.
Amen.
We're working on some things, right? This is not the only entity that I have, but this is one of the ones that means so much to me, and I'm just trying to build something that's meaningful. So I'll take your support. Feel free to give me a little review. I'm available across all podcast platforms. You can also find us on YouTube, and we're going to keep this train moving. With that, I'm wishing you nothing but the best. And I'm rooting for all of you. I hope you have a wonderful day. Cheers.
No cosign needed, I've been self-made. If you cut from my cloth, that's